Since 1923, Roy O. Martin, a Louisiana-based wood products company, has followed the example of its founder to give back to our Louisiana communities where we live and work. To learn more, visit royomartin.com. The Louisiana Lottery is proud to join LPB in honoring the 2018 Louisiana Legends, contributing over $3.5 billion for K-12 public education. The lottery is giving Louisiana a reason to smile. Support for the 2018 Louisiana Legends comes from Willis Knighton, a locally owned, locally operated not-for-profit health system serving patients in the Arklatex since 1924.
Good evening and welcome to Louisiana Legends. I'm Beth Courtney, and tonight we're visiting with renowned neurosurgeon Dr. Julian Bailes. But before our conversation, let's take a look at the short biography. Growing up in Natchitoches, Louisiana, Julian Bailes Jr.'s childhood was filled with idyllic tales of hunting and fishing along the Cane River. He also was a star in sports, including football, where he played both offensive and defensive linemen.
Julian was a good athlete. So, if you're on the line, you're the man. Those are the guys that really pound away, and they're the ones that don't get all the credit.
After winning a state championship his senior year at Natchitoches Academy, his career was cut short at Northwestern State after suffering a neck injury.
I think it was a reality check. I think that's probably what it was, maybe kind of that death of a dream sort of idea. But I think he, and probably with my dad's influence, decided it was time to be serious and do what he needed to do to prepare for a career. So I think he handled it really well.
Julian moved on to medicine and would become one of the most respected neurosurgeons in the world.
If you make a comparison to the NFL, there's no such thing as a slouch NFL player. You have to be pretty good to get there. Well, he would be like a Peyton Manning in the NFL. He's really reached the top because of his body of work.
His passion for football never waned, and in 1988, the Pittsburgh Steelers hired him as their team doctor. He also worked the sidelines at West Virginia University when he was named to chair the school's Department of Neurology. His research has been instrumental in the understanding of the clinical evidence of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE. It is a progressive degenerative brain disease found in individuals who have been subjected to multiple concussions or subconcussive blows. His character is portrayed by Alec Baldwin in the 2015 feature film Concussions, starring Will Smith, who plays Nigerian-American pathologist Bennet Omalu. Omalu first discovered CTE in the brain of deceased Steelers center Mike Webster. The two doctors raised serious and important questions about the dangers of football and challenged the NFL to acknowledge the long-term health risks facing its players.
I think that Dr. Omalu was really in need of support. He had done his research and he needed somebody to believe him. And Julian was that one that stepped up to do it when many others did not want to stick their neck out into that area.
Julian had to go through some tough times whenever you start claiming that football was that and agreed with that with his status, because you're fighting a lot of big power, big money people and corporations and businesses.
The work that Dr. Bailes is doing is going to preserve football because he's making it safer. He's doing it at every level, most importantly, starting with Pop Warner.
And Pop Warner has worked very hard to make football safe for kids to enjoy.
As the nation's oldest youth football program, Pop Warner has taken a leadership role in making the game safer for kids with revolutionary rule changes and enhanced coaching education.
He has helped so many people and genuinely wants to serve. And he has a servant's heart. There are a lot of people who maybe grew up with him that would not know that about him, but he's just the best brother, and I just love him so much.
If you could invent a time machine and you could go into the future 30 years, he's going to be even a bigger name than he is now because he's the guy that saved professional football.
Dr. Bailes, welcome home. Glad you're back here in Louisiana. What brings you home?
This time I'm here to watch LSU play Alabama.
Well,
So,
do you
great.
often come for football games during
I
the
try
season?
at least once a year, yes.
Well, so tell us, we saw that you were born in Natchitoches, growing up on Cane River. It sounds like an idyllic childhood. Was it? Did you feel like you were in the big city, or did you think you were in rural North Louisiana?
I was actually born in Alexandria, but grew up in different places, primarily Natchitoches, and did my best Tom Sawyer impersonation growing up on the Cane River. I think I got a little boat when I was in the 6th grade and camped out and fished and caught turtles and any other things we could get our hands into at that time.
When did you first think you wanted to be a physician?
I think it was a process of elimination because I felt finishing high school that I really didn't have any talent in anything else except perhaps science. And that's what started me thinking about that. My father had been a judge for many years, I think the longest serving judge in the history of Louisiana, about 50 years at all levels, from city court all the way to the Supreme Court of Louisiana. So I did not have any talent or acumen for law, and again, it was a process of elimination.
Gosh, your father, was he a tough judge on his children?
He was tough on me. I always say I was put on trial many times at the dinner table, so I tried to keep my head down and avoid any controversy as I could.
So good at science, and then when you went to LSU Med School, was it what you expected?
I loved it, and I loved all aspects of it, and I believe in med school you sort of see the class sorting out early on. There's the surgeon wannabes, and there's the non-surgeon types, the future pediatricians and psychiatrists and radiologists and pathologists. So I was sitting with the surgeon part of the classroom.
That's sort of the type A, one would say. Or wives of surgeons I have known, and women who are surgeons would say that, you know.
Probably.
Probably
Yes.
so, probably
Yes.
so. So neurosurgery, though, that quite a specialty.
It's a great specialty, one that I've loved from the beginning and loved and really drawn with the expectation of the knowledge of the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, the brain, the spine. So yeah, I loved every aspect of it. It was a real privilege to train and learn how to become a neurosurgeon.
So the interesting thing in your career, of course, you've great worldwide fame now because as we were doing that bio, a movie, Concussion, was coming out, and it sort of married two of an early love for football and your profession. And so it's interesting how through the years that has happened. You played football yourself, did you not?
I did. I played 10 years. I had a career that I always say that when I return home, none of my family or friends can remember with any specificity. But for me, it was a very important part of my youth and still love the game. And as I got older and in my career, I saw an opportunity I hoped that would help to increase our knowledge and the safety of the game.
Did you have concussions when you were playing?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to
I
your
didn't.
knowledge.
Yeah,
not to
fortunately.
your knowledge. So this moment in time when you then became aware of the fact that maybe there was this connection between concussions and trauma. I mean, the movie I saw, which was excellent, and I read some material about the preparation, but when this doctor, pathologist, right, brought you information that said there's something unusual going on here, what was your first reaction to that?
Well, we had first actually reported it in 2000, and he came out with the first autopsy of a former NFL player, Mike Webster, played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that he actually had brain damage. It was similar to an Alzheimer's type picture. Growing up, we played football and we knew there was potential for injuries, even potentially serious injuries, but we didn't sign up to become brain damaged young adults. And that was the paradigm shift, and that was a call to action for physicians and scientists, but particularly for the sport itself, to evolve, to change, and to do everything possible to make it safer.
Terry Bradshaw told me when I asked him about it one time, we knew it was a dangerous sport, he was sort of very dismissive of this kind of need to worry about making things safer. Have you found those two different reactions, perhaps?
I think it's much less than it was in the past. That was the initial reaction we got from all levels and a lot of people. And people like Terry Bradshaw, who are great players, made their living and their fame playing it. I understand that. But again, once we understood there was a potential for brain damage that no one wants, the game had to begin to take excessive or gratuitous contact out, and rule changes and practice change, everything possible, and that's been done.
A lot has been done. What is left to be done, do you think?
I'm not sure, Beth. There's a lot left to be done because at every level, from the NFL down to youth football, we've eliminated a lot of practice contact. Most levels don't really have much contact. Coach Saban told me they have at Alabama only 5 full outright contact practices a year now. We've looked at eliminating, and it has been done, the open field hits, the head-to-head hits, the targeting of the head, targeting of defenseless players. So a lot has been done.
And what about technology in helmets and things like that?
The helmet does not prevent concussion because the human brain floats inside the skull. So when the head suddenly stops, the brain has the ability to move or translate or stretch or damage fibers. So the helmet is not the answer. That's why when you don't have complete protection and complete knowledge, you have to default to avoiding exposure. So for instance, if someone tells me, Dr. Bailes, I don't want to get lung cancer, my answer would be, well, while I don't know all the carcinogens in tobacco, how about not smoking? That's an exposure-based, knowledge-based way to react.
So Pop Warner football, the youngest ones, you work with that group extensively, don't you?
Yes, I'm the head of their medical committee.
Yes, and so are you finding young people choosing other sports now? But many of them have contact as well. I was looking, my grandson plays lacrosse, and they're smacking each other in the head too.
Every sport that has the potential for movement and collisions has the risk of concussion or head injury. And it's not just the known concussions, it's the repetitive contact, the so-called subconcussive blows that people can have. For girls, number one is soccer. And also girls basketball, girls ice hockey, number 2 and number 3. Boys, as you mentioned, lacrosse, ice hockey, wrestling. So football has been singled out a little bit unfairly, as we've realized through science and medical advances that it's important to avoid head contact.
So a lot of your research should hold fruit for helping in IEDs with troops coming back, say, from war zones, I would imagine.
The military has the same problem. The issue is not occasionally hitting your head, it's the repetitive nature. And that's the rub in sports like football and others where you hit your head repetitively. It doesn't have to be a known or diagnosed concussion. And so in the military, they're exposed to multiple, sometimes dozens of these explosive blasts, and that causes impact to the brain as well. So yes, same phenomenon.
And there's so many people do repetitive tours of duty, so building up, as you're saying.
They do. It's like a long sports career.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you're not doing this serious work, what is it you enjoy doing?
Well, I have 5 kids, so I have to indulge with their activities, which for us right now is primarily golf. So I always thought golf was kind of a waste of my time because I had no talent. So some golf and work is my main thing. I've in the past enjoyed boxing and martial arts, things like that has physical aspect to them. And that's been pretty much with a 6-day-a-week job as a neurosurgeon my life.
Do you think you're ever going to retire?
My wife says that we have so many kids that there's no retirement for me, that I have to go from my last day of work right to the nursing home. So I haven't gotten that far yet. Well,
do you look back on it and think, I I need to give some advice to some younger people, or advice to your children about careers, or do you just encourage them to be whatever is best for them? What's your advice?
My kids, none of them have had any predilection or interest in medicine, but again, that's their choice. So I teach at the University of Chicago, so we train after these doctors have completed med school, we train them to be neurosurgeons. So I do teaching in that regard every day.
So what fields are they interested in, your children?
Golf, number one. Number two, number three. I have my oldest son's in mechanical engineering, and my daughter's in communications. So that's where we are so far.
So we see that as well. What do you think for the people of Louisiana? It feels like as you come back, do you sense the state has optimism, or what's your impression in Louisiana? You are a native son, and yet when you return, what's your impression?
Well, the impression is it's still one of the greatest states in the country, and my favorite state. And my training and my occupation took me north, but I still come back every time I get a chance, which is several times a year. As people meet me around the country, they always want to talk about Louisiana, and they, some reason I think, automatically assume if you're from Louisiana, you're a bit of a character at the very least. So I'm proud to be from Louisiana and still, cherish my affiliation and roots here.
What are the best things? What are the things you think about most when you say you like it? What is it you like about Louisiana?
Probably number one, the people, and certainly my friends and my family who are here, but the outdoors, the love for sports, the purity of the Old South. So many things that I think people around the country realize.
Well, I know growing up, it used to be everyone now has crawfish and Mardi Gras, even north of Baton Rouge. I mean, in Alexandria and Natchitoches. But younger, Shreveport didn't have that. We didn't know what a crawfish was in Shreveport. Do you find that there is sort of a spreading flavor of what it means to be a Louisianian around the state?
It has, you're right. And when I was growing up, it was primarily, as you said, New Orleans, but it has spread north. And in Natchitoches, they had the famous meat pies.
Yes.
But now they have a lot of Cajun food as well.
Do you remember the Christmas festival? Do you have a wonderful memory of being young there in Natchitoches at the time? Because it's so famous, Christmas festivals around the world.
It was, and that was one of the most exciting things. There wasn't too many big events in Natchitoches every year, but that was certainly maybe the biggest.
That is so neat. So let me ask you about getting to know the African-American physician that you worked with in the early stages of understanding this disease. What was it like? Were you friendly or just colleagues, or what was that relationship like?
Well, he discovered and reported the first case ever of this CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, in a modern football player. I had actually taken care of that football player, Mike Webster, when he retired. I knew him very well. He had all sorts of problems. He became demented in his 40s, which is too young to have Alzheimer's. So his name is Bennet Omalu. He's a Nigerian-born neuropathologist, played by Will Smith in the movie Concussion. And he said, I don't know anything about American football, but there's something wrong with this picture. A pivotal part in that movie is where he says, at the morgue, fix the brain of Mike Webster, meaning let's take it all the way through to the microscopic examination, looking for the signs of dementia, broken down proteins. So I had known the patient, and then he called me up and said, I have your former patient here, and this is what we found. And so that began our work together, and we still work together today.
Do you? And now are you able to actually see some earlier signs and not just in an autopsy?
We are, but the biggest problem with CTE is we really can't make the diagnosis in living people definitely. And so without that, until that test emerges, and we're doing some work at UCLA to help make that happen through special PET scans. You can look for the signs, and you know that they have played contact sports for many years, but we really don't know the incidence or prevalence, who gets it and why. There's no genetic cause identified yet. So again, until that time comes with complete knowledge, the default has to be to take head contact out of every sport And as I like to say, hitting your head doesn't help anybody.
So do you have players contact you personally?
All the time.
All the time. How many?
Probably hundreds through the years.
Through the years? And can you work with them individually, or what's your response?
Well, I'm a surgeon, so that part with a brain injury is kind of a sidelight. I have a brain injury research laboratory. We have funding to do different types of experiments. And then I have my practice of brain surgery. I try to advise them the best I can and help get them to the people maybe can help them. But, you know, there is no cure. There is no drug to treat the effects of prior brain injury.
And so research is being done at UCLA. Any place else in the country?
The biggest thing is trying to make this living diagnosis, and UCLA is the leading. There's some other places that are looking at also trying to come up with a way to visualize it. But look, here's another example, is that the German physician Alois Alzheimer discovered the disease which bears his name well over 100 years ago, and we still don't know the exact causes or have a treatment, and have a hard time definitively visualizing with a scan someone with Alzheimer's disease.
And so once again, it's only after you pass away and you look at someone's brain and you say it's a definite conclusion.
That's exactly right, Beth. And if you can only tell someone they have a disease when they're dead, you really can't help them, obviously.
So how frustrating, but what an area of important research, I would think. Yeah.
It is. I think worldwide brain degeneration, so-called neurodegeneration, the whole Alzheimer's family, the effects of brain injury is one of the most important looming healthcare issues going forward.
So let me ask you, on the night where we said you're a Louisiana legend, you were with an interesting group of people. Was it fun for your family? Did you all enjoy it?
It was fun. The whole event was so well done, and it was a very proud honor for me to be there and be with that group.
Have you looked at some others? We have an interesting group of people in all walks of life in Louisiana. That's when we began this. That was what was so interesting, I think, to us.
I bet. And yeah, you've really covered the whole gamut, haven't you?
Right. Well, of course, Michael DeBakey was one earlier on,
that's right.
and the research that he did there was so interesting.
Yes.
So a long line of folks. So this is one. Is there anyone particularly you look back that you'd like to thank in your life that helped you get ahead?
There were so many, starting back to, of course, my parents, but teachers that were very important, and I loved math and science in school, and those teachers influenced me. Teachers in pre-med, like George C. Kent here at LSU, was pivotal. The teachers in medical school, and then when I finished medical school, I trained in Los Angeles, New York, Phoenix, and Chicago. So there are teachers that, you know, inculcated and taught, and of course, like every other profession, you end up being an amalgamation of all of those influences: coaches, teachers, parents, and professors of brain surgery.
Well, you know, there's an awful lot of controversy now around how we deliver medical care. Mainly how we pay for it is the challenge in the U.S. And I'm fascinated that we've just taken a different path in much of the Western world, Europe. Do you have opinions on that? Because I hear young people saying, oh, don't go into medicine, you'll spend all your time filling out paperwork and you can't actually treat the patient. Do you hear that from fellow doctors? Or?
We hear that, and we've seen the evolution to no more paper and everything done electronically. It has some burdens, but overall it's a very added, advantageous part of technology. So we embrace it, and if you like science and want to take care of patients and try to do what you can to help people, it's a fascinating and rewarding field to be in.
It's one you're going to continue for a long time, I hope.
I would like to, yes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time on your trip here to visit with us. We congratulate you on being a Louisiana legend, and we're proud of our native sons and daughters, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Louisiana Legends.
Since 1923, Roy O'Martin, a Louisiana-based wood products company, has followed the example of its founder to give back to our Louisiana communities where we live and work. To learn more, visit royomartin.com. The Louisiana Lottery is proud to join LPB in honoring the 2018 Louisiana Legends, contributing over $3.5 billion for K-12 public education. The lottery is giving Louisiana a reason to smile. Support for the 2018 Louisiana Legends comes from Willis Knighton, a locally owned, locally operated not-for-profit health system serving patients in the Arklatex since 1924.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org.